Now open Mary, Our Lady of Peace Mausoleum in Flushing, New York. Secure your family's future with 10% down, no taxes, and 0% interest financing for up to 10 years on pre-need crypts and cremation niches starting at just $25 per month. Protect your loved ones with the gift of pre-planning. Visit them today at Mount St. Mary Cemetery. Call 718-353-1560. That's 718-353-1560. Or go to ccbklyn.org to learn more. That's ccbklyn.org.
BTW, FYI. Visit Nexplanon.com RN to learn about Nexplanon. It's an adjustable implant, 68 milligrams radiopaque. Or ask your HCP IRL. Okay, TTYL.
From Wall Street to the White House, this is the Larry Kudlow Show.
So Israel on the march against Hezbollah, located, of course, to the north in Lebanon, Beirut, and succeeding with some brilliant strikes and some unbelievable counterterrorism. We bring on the show one of my favorites, Aaron Cohen. It's Prince Aaron Cohen. He's the Israeli special ops veteran and now founder of Cherries, which specializes in counterterrorism training for law enforcement. Aaron, thank you for doing this on a Saturday. We're much obliged.
Good to be here with you, Larry. Always good to be with you.
You know, I'm reading, I want to get to the pagers and the walkie-talkies and all that, but the Israeli airstrike, I guess yesterday, hitting the Beirut stronghold of Dayef, however you pronounce it. But here's the thing. They nailed this son of a bitch, Ibrahim Akil, the commander of Hezbollah's elite Radwan force, as well as some 10 commanders. This guy had a $7 million price bounty on his head. He was the guy, I guess, who was behind the truck bombings way back in 1983. It's dear to my heart because they killed nearly 300 U.S. military service people. That's point number one, breaks my heart. And number two, Ronald Reagan was president. I was a young man. I was the associate budget director at OMB. So we finally got this guy. And there's got to be a message here to the Hezbollah. How do you see it, Aaron Cohen? How do you look at this?
Well, it was a really significant strike, Larry. The way I see this right now is Israel has really released the brakes. Israel said it would. People shouldn't be surprised. You know, you can't sit back and be passive with terrorists. They'll just kill you. They'll cut your head off. They'll gut you, they'll maim you, and they'll let you bleed out like we saw on October 7th, like we saw with the Marine barracks bombing. So on October 8th, when Israel got when the message was sent by Hamas, and I've been saying this, you know, with you and with everybody on the news, everybody thought Israel was going to get pushed into the ocean. I said, whoa, hang on a second here. Israel's really good at this stuff. Give Israel a minute to get the engine warmed up, and then you're going to see some serious operations unfolding. And that's what we're seeing, and that's what you just mentioned, which was the targeting of the Hezbollah military official, Ibrahim Akil, who was the head of the Radwan unit for Hezbollah, which is equivalent to their special forces. And Israel took out about a half a dozen high-level commanders in one attack, hiding in a building underneath civilians in Beirut, deep into Beirut. And so the gloves are now really coming off. And this operation, the pager operation, this is all connected, Larry. The pager operation is 5-6 months in the making. You know, these operations take years to be able to pull off. You've got to target assets and embed companies. You know, this is something that Israel does, you know, they started decades ago throughout Europe to be able to set up these shell corporations, which is what Israel does. You know, the days of running spies out of consulates, those days are over. This ain't the 60s and the 70s. That's for the old James Bond movie. Today, these spies are setting up corporations to be able to recruit assets, and 98% of the people that work for Israel have no idea they're working for Israel, Larry. And so the whole system's been flipped around, and it's really embedded in its deep infiltration. And what you saw play out with the pagers, and now with the attack on Ibrahim Akil, is the fruits of 20 years of intelligence gathering. And Israel's finally released the brakes because they They really do. When Israel feels like it has information or intelligence that there's going to be an imminent attack, like the one we saw a couple of weeks ago where Israel took out thousands of missiles that were getting ready to get fired at Israel, they preempted. Ismail Haniyeh, they had to take him out. He's a threat to Israel's national security. Israel can't make one mistake, Larry. So that's why Israel's so aggressive with this preemption here. And we're going to see more of this unfolding. But Israel's brilliance is and will always be in its real-time intelligence gathering, getting real-time information, having its assets buried so deep that you have no idea where they are, where they're coming from. And then, all the way down to Israel will preempt the moment there's information, like with this Jericho raid that's supposed to be coming up here. They've been talking about this for years. But if the Radwan Brigade infiltrates Israel from the north, it can be very dangerous for Israel, so they had to take out those planners immediately.
Let me ask, on this incredible, I'll call it counterintelligence or counterinsurgents, the pagers and the walkie-talkies, and they blew up, and they hit, I don't know, 2,000-3,000 presumably Hezbollah people. All right, many were killed, and the rest of them were injured. My question to you, Aaron Cohen, is that how does this affect the communications network for Hezbollah? Is it crippled or is it sufficiently damaged? They're coming in, they're hitting these airstrikes, and they're taking out these commanders and so forth. But now they've hit all these Hezbollah people, and their walkie-talkies blew up and their pagers blew up, which Israel orchestrated. Does that just cripple the communications network of the Hezbollah terrorists?
It does a couple of things. So the first thing it does is it injures. Well, so from what I'm hearing, it's about 5,000 devices, Larry, that were in PETN, which is a very intense explosive that you only need tiny amounts of it for. We use it in Semtex. We use it in C4. It's been around forever. This goes all the way back to that explosive composition was placed either in the manufacturing stage, and that company's being investigated out of Hungary. She probably had no idea that she was working for Israel. So that explosive was either placed in the manufacturing phase, but I'm also hearing from sources of mine that it may have been placed in the holding stage where it had to sit outside of Lebanon for a couple of months because they're very careful about how they bring in products specifically for Hezbollah. So there has to be like a 3-month hold, and that may have been when Israel got its little fingers in there. About 5,000 devices were tainted or infected with the explosives. It destroys the immediate communications capabilities of the Hezbollah operators because those are personal communications devices or PCDs. I mean, those are the devices that, that's your day-to-day, Larry. You're getting a page, you got to make the phone call from the hard line. And if you can't speak to each other, you cannot plan terrorism. You can't organize a thing. So not only are the comms down, but there's thousands of these guys injured. So there's the psychological aspect, which you and I have talked about, which is very intense. It's almost like the idea of getting killed by by Israel is almost worse than getting killed by Israel.
Yep.
The mind is a very dangerous tool. And Israel's a master at that psychology. And they're starting to flip the script on these guys, and they're doing it in less than a year. So the comms are down, the injuries are significant, and then the cherry on top is taking out a keel. It's a multi-layered operation. And I think it's got a tremendous effect on Hezbollah. And I think it makes Hassan Nasrallah, which we discussed the other day, do I want to continue with Israel? Because I'll tell you, the bigwigs are the biggest cowards.
Why don't they get him? Why don't they nail Nasrallah? I'm sure they're looking at it.
I think they're trying. I think they're tightening the noose, Larry, but I don't think it's as easy to get these guys. There's a lot of layers. And, these guys are in the spy business, too. I just think there's a lot of layers. Israel's got to peel back. The good news is that Israel and Chipsuta pagerim, like we say in Hebrew, they were on those pagers, Larry, for months. So they've got an incredible mapping that they've been able to do now throughout the entire Hezbollah network, from Iran to Lebanon to Tukarim, to Taibeh and Marjun and all these. Who knows how many tunnels they've dug, Larry? I don't think Israel's really unpeeled the onion there. I think there could be a lot more problems that Israel's still sort of figuring out right now. But having the ability to track those pages for 5-6 months, I think, was very.
Oh, so it was an intel. Oh, sure. So they're picking up intelligence.
Well, that was the third thing I was going to throw in there. So
I hadn't thought about that.
That's right.
So they're tapped in. They're tapped into those communications.
Yeah, they just outsmarted Hezbollah. Wow. They did it in a very quiet way, and that's why the intelligence for Israel is so important. Like the U.S. can kind of like miss. The U.S. has got the submarines and the might and the deterrence, but Israel's like, we have a tiny military, we have a 500,000, whatever it is, and it's all counterterrorism, and so everything's got to be like, we can't make mistakes. Then we got Blinken and we got Harris and we got Biden, and you know me, I don't get political. But they're always pointing a finger at Israel. And they're like, hey, man, you got to go easy in Rafah. You got to go easy here. You got to go easy. Okay, so watch this. We're going to blow off everybody's groins in one button. How's that? Does that work for you guys?
Listen, let me ask you one last question. I just got a minute here. So what the Israelis have done in Beirut with Hezbollah, does this Sinwar, the Hamas leader Sinwar, does this have any impact on him? Like, I'm sure they're trying to nail him, but Israel still has some work to do down south along the Rafah line.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think they're two separate campaigns. Sinwar is almost a symbol at this point right now. And from what I'm hearing, he is surrounded by the remaining hostages. Oh. And that's the only reason why he's alive.
Right.
It's just Right. Yep. And so that is such a quagmire. That is such, that's the kind of thing where friends of mine are going, man, what I would do to be on that Sinwar mission. Like, that's what everybody's seething over, to get Sinwar, but there's nothing they can do. I wouldn't be surprised if they even know what general area he's in. He could be surrounded by, the last 100 hostages. And so I don't think Gaza is an issue anymore, except for the hostages. I think the real focus now, and the IDF just said this a couple of days ago, Larry, time to start focusing our mission on the northern part, the northern threat.
Right.
And the reason why is because Hezbollah invades, and who knows, 50, 20,000, 30,000, 100,000, who knows how many. Israel's got itself a serious problem, but they got to get those 80, 100,000 civilians back in their homes. And I think Israel's done enough to Gaza at this point where it's quiet. Time to start focusing on the north. And the good news is Israel's been dealing with this crap for years. So, Bibi, you can say what you want about the guy. Give the guy a break. He's trying to save a country. I've always been a fan of Bibi. I think he means well.
Me too.
Yeah, I think he means well. He lost his brother, who was a treasure.
And the country,
treasure.
The country has rallied around him. In the beginning, his polls were very bad. There were a lot of political issues. I don't want to go into it. But the polls now in Israel, very favorable to Prime Minister Netanyahu. Very favorable. He's been a good wartime leader, and you're right. And you know what? Biden and Blinken and the rest of them have been lousy wartime leaders. They're always pointing the finger at Israel. I'm so tired. You and I have talked about this on the TV show. I'm just so tired of it. But God bless Israel. I mean, they're just brilliant. They're absolutely brilliant. Bottom line, the Israelis are smarter. You know what, Prince Aaron Cohen? The Israelis are smarter. Okay, and they're doing it. That's what's happening here, and they're going to hold the line, win this thing. I'm sorry, we're running out of time. Aaron Cohen, everybody, is a brilliant guy. He's on the TV show all the time. Israeli special ops veteran. He's got a new company called Cherries, and it's counterterrorism training for law enforcement folks. Thank you, Aaron Cohen. We appreciate it. Folks, take a quick break. Then Congressman Mike Waltz, brilliant guy, by the way, from Florida. And we're going to talk some more about this Secret Service disaster and maybe some other things. I'm Kudlow. Please stick around.
Larry Kudlow.